in general.
Good morning, our wonderful listeners, and you're welcome to your darling station again, Living Radio 90.9 FM. We're back again today, as usual, to give you updates on happenings around the state and even the country. Today we'll be looking at something that happened within the state, and that is Michael Okpara University, Federal University of Agriculture. And I'm sure as we speak, you know that the school is on shutdown as we speak now. And what happened? What brought about that? This we'll be looking at today because of tuition hike and also the VC's attitude towards that that will lead to that. Well, when we get to that, and another one we'll be looking at certain emergency calls on medical doctors at various hospitals who refuse treating patients on gunshot until there is a police report. And before the police report gets around, the president must have given up the ghost. And then the federal government has come to realize and also to let hospitals know that is not supposed to be. So you are supposed to treat them, and then after a while you can now report to the nearby police station. The law did not say you don't treat them. So this we'll be looking at today. And as usual, I have with me in the house an analyst who is also going to help and do justice to this. He's a man you know too well, a historian par excellence, and also a tele-evangelist. He's a political affairs analyst and public affairs analyst, and that is Comrade Namdi Lekwachi. Comrade, welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning to you. Thank you for having me, Mr. Moderator, and good day to our listener out there.
All right, I'm sure you also heard about what happened at Federal University of Agriculture, Obudike.
Yes.
You know that. Please, let's hear your own version of how it happened.
Anyway, what I am told was that the students actually resumed, and then a circular was passed and talking about a hike in tuition, especially being a federal school where the federal government is also talking about student loan and all that. But one funny thing, we looked at the budget, we saw that the money the federal government earmarked for construction of car parks outweigh the sum they were using for strategic things. Even the money for the so-called student loan was so paltry. The allocation for the sectoral allocation was so paltry that one begins to ask question. Given the conditionalities attached to the loan, that you must pay back in certain years after graduation, or this and that will happen to you. So now you bring it back to the context of the students. Remember that the Nigerian system or the Nigerian educational landscape we have today, children of the haves or the mighty, the rich, the novel rich, their children are no longer in this country. They are ensconced away in foreign countries where they are pursuing one educational degree or the other. Now the poor ones who are even paying through their nose the tuition are the ones who are grappling with this. Now this policy or this announcement came. Mind you, this is a federal school. This announcement came, and the students, although they took the laws into their hands and then went, they ran amok.
All right,
and then we heard about the school closure and all that.
All right, it was also alleged that it was not just about the hike one, and then also the VC coming around to say those of them that have not paid fully should not take the exam while they were already seated in exam hall.
Exactly.
And that is exactly what led to this. And it angered the students. And then what the area I want us to look at, I know myself, after graduation, it took about 5 years for me to come back and do clearance to get my certificate. And our tertiary institutions, are they no more applying that?
Yes, they are no longer applying that, and it's regrettable. For example, in certain institutions today, you are expected to pay certain thing, and you are asking whether the certificate is now sellable, whether you are processing it, or you are expected to pay certain amount of money. And what you call clearance, or what you just said to be clearance, that has also changed. I can say categorically, because your time is different from my time. My time, you even when you are not expected to pay money, certain offices you drop something they call T.
That's true.
The person who has your file, who wants to send it to maybe the security department for checks, or for the Senate for maybe approval, you understand, might actually ask you for lunch or something. Yes, it's that crazy, the system we run. And then again, you see that education is not free in a country where we are blessed. In fact, in a country blessed with abundant natural resources and even human resources. But that said, I think we are having problem the way we are going about education. You know, this happened in Niger State Polytechnic. Students at a time also protested. In fact, in 2008, 2009, Abia State University was also in the news for such thing, and then the governor then denied increasing the fee, and then students took to the streets carrying placards, and ubiquitous protests, you understand. But at the end of the day, what happened? The school fees was increased, but not to the amount they had issued in the secular. So you begin to see that most parents are struggling, and they had been beaten by current economic realities of 1, naira devaluation, 2, fuel subsidy removal. Many businesses had gone under, and the people are struggling to get by, including to train their children. And now this is happening. Usually, we're not talking about hiking in tuition now. The same parents we pay for accommodation, the same parents we give money for feeding, the same parents we also give money for welfare, maybe clothing, and then the same parents will also buy academic materials, including the one you call handouts. So it's unfortunate, the system we are today. And then to think that once in the 70s that students were entitled to lunch, we are having free accommodation, we are enjoying some of these things free of charge, and then we used to have scholarship boards that were robust, that we are working both at state level and at federal level. You pity this nation. Today we've lost it, and that's why it accounts for why you can't have. In fact, the University of Nigeria and Soka and the University of Badon seem to have known better days. They've seem to have seen better days or known better days. In which case, you remember that during apartheid, South Africans came to Nigeria. It happened in your time, and I know what I'm saying. They came to Nigeria to acquire education, and now even in the 1970s, Soka used to have this Institute for African Studies where you have people from Egypt coming. That in which case you could see dollar being converted to naira. So what amount of money does education give us? Today, the government we have had actually run down education in terms of sectoral allocation from budget, owing of lecturers. We are every day talking about ASU strike, and I hear also another one is looming. Then they now send their children abroad. Unfortunately, when you run down the education sector, these are the things you get. So these are the things you get. So it's unfortunate that we are seeing that play out in Federal University. Yes, we are. I'm also urging the president, who I believe has education as one of his cardinal points or programs, to look into this matter, because this is a federal university, or the Minister of Education, the Federal Minister of Education, to look into it critically, to see that it does not actually escalate or lead to any problem.
All right. Also, there's also another point I want us to look at, and especially as it stands now, this idea of chasing the undergraduates who are sitting in their classes for exams, or asking them to go off. Because I remember in our own days, if you're able to make sure your class attendance is up and doing, and you're able to get your materials, yes, you keep studying.
Yeah.
This degree certificate, you are not going to go with it immediately. You come back for it. That is the essence of clearance.
Yes.
Then the idea of asking students to pay, I also learned that even up to now, I started that same pattern.
Yes, they started it earlier, right. Since I think it's a few years ago now.
All right. So, is it proper?
It's not proper. It's not, because the education, the certificate is not sellable. It can only be awarded to somebody who has actually merited it, or who is deserving, by virtue of, from what they write there, learning and character. You've been found worthy in learning and character. And now, I think there are discussions. If you do this, it becomes discriminatory, that the children of the poor can no longer access education or access educational facilities in the land. I have this to say, you see, in my time, it was not like that. When because I passed through Abia State University, if you have not paid your school fees, there was some level of grace. You understand? Even though there could be harassment. You understand? Because some students, don't forget also that some students can actually be funny. The parents could give school fees and they may not pay. You understand? They prefer to leave. You know what I'm saying now. So the school might want to exercise one policy or the other, but that did not actually. I can't recall saying that someone actually did not sit for exam because they didn't pay their school fees or they didn't pay their tuition. But I learned at the same time that I think 3, 4, 5 years ago that a policy was introduced in Abia State University where if you don't pay your fee, you will not sit the exams. You will not sit the exams, and it's unfortunate. So what I have to say is that there's always need to recalibrate, to rejig, to go back and see where we got it all wrong and see what can be done to salvage the situation. If not, education will now become a preserve of the rich, and it will lead to an exclusionary practice or system.
All right, no matter what happens, what happened at Federal University of Agriculture, Modike, the students riot and so on, we condemn it in totality. The essence of burning down one of the halls there, it does not call for that. Assuming the students are now such as to make sure they repeal that.
I will tell you something. You see, you don't joke with this. Take it to the bank. You see, after what the school will be looking at now is no longer the hike. Is going to be the damages.
The damages, that's it.
And the costs that will be awarded. What will happen is that upon resumption or when school reopens, the vice chancellor or the governing council or the senate, howsoever they decide to do it, will inaugurate a committee to look into the costs. You understand? Now look at this. They now look into the cause and the consequences. Yes, the causes and consequences of the protest. In which case they will focus majorly on the consequences of the protest, not the cause of the protest, which is the hike, but the consequences, which will now focus on what was destroyed, how it was destroyed, who destroyed what. But then you see that the students are the one going to pay this. In fact, not the students, the parents are the ones going to foot or shoulder this responsibility. So so and that's why students should also desist from any destructive act, any act that can actually undermine academic activities, because we say bastion or you say citadel of learning. I think that calmness or that calm should be there. And then when you talk about this, I know students will actually, in most cases, I'm not making a case against them, but I'm trying to be objective and balanced. In most cases, you see destruction. You understand? It has happened in Abia State University before. It has happened in Soka before. It has happened in even Nekede, Federal Polytechnic, Nekede, Fed. It doesn't happen in places. Then you go there and ask. Students came back only to see the cost of the damages embedded in their tuition or their fees. In fact, they were even charged to pay in most cases. You understand? And then the school will also tell you the number of laptops, the number of computer, then the number of computer, the volume of books that have been destroyed, and you have to pay back. Even if it affected the hostel, you will talk about erecting a new. So it's not a win-win outcome.
All right. An anonymous student I was able to run into said the whole thing was caused by the VC of
the pronouncement.
Yes. So it was alleged that the VC himself took it upon himself to go around the classes to talk to them about this non-payment and
then if you know how school works, should the VC be the one to drive or to talk about that? When you have the bosser, because we know how this system works. When you have the bosser, when you have the registry or the registrar there, I think it shouldn't have come from the if at all that's true. It shouldn't have, if at all it is true. If at all it is true, it shouldn't have come from the VC. You see, the VC, you have the VC academics, you have the VC administration. So the VC should be focused with administration of the school in terms of policy, in terms of what programs are being offered, in terms of where there are gaps, where you need more manpower, where you need to employ more hands to lecture, or where you are having problem in terms of NUC recommendations and guidelines. Not just to busy himself or herself with who pays school fees. No, it's not. It's not his duty.
All right.
And I'm not sure there is not such money comes to the office of the VC. No. because you don't clear at the point of finance. You don't go to the visit office to clear. You clear the registry, you clear the buzzer, you clear through the bursary, you clear through the security, you go to the Senate. The Senate will be the one to now do the final approval and say this person has been found what in learning and character. After your department and your faculty must have given you the go-ahead order to clear yourself.
All right. Now, one other thing we look at before we got break is this idea of forcing students to pay their fees, and those of them, if you are not ready, they would stop you from taking your exams and so much. And then if you are not able to come up with that money, that means you're losing either a semester or a year.
Yes.
Is it supposed to be that way? And what are our schools supposed to do? In those days, I know, like I said, in my own time. Yes, in my own time, it was after 4 years that I went back to pay.
Yes, I think the university system, they are losing it. Before now, university is a free entry, but not free exit.
Yes.
You can enter, but you cannot leave without some checks. What you have come there to acquire is a certificate or degree. You not come there to pay money, although you pay tuition. Yeah. But you not come there. The soul of being there is not to pay tuition; it's to acquire the training or the education which the university offers or provides platform for. And then if you because I know the only payment that is mandatory in my time was acceptance fee. You must accept the admission offered to you on provisional term. Is you have a provisional admission, mind you, it's not a final admission. For you to make that admission concrete or final, you pay acceptance fee to tell the school, I have accepted this. Whether or not you've paid your school fees, you can now get your matriculation number or registration number. If you don't pay, if you fail to pay the acceptance fee, you will not get the registration number. You understand? Yeah. But when you accept the admission, because the admission has been given to you provisionally, you say, okay, I want to accept it. I have accepted the admission you gave to me. I'm accepting to study under your tutelage. I'm accepting to study and make use of your facilities. The school will now give you, will now do what? Go ahead and then make the admission authentic. After authentication of the admission, you begin lectures. Other ones you pay, whether medical bills you pay for checkup of your health to know to ascertain the level of your health or your fitness. Other things you pay, even for using school facilities like a field, the stadium, or whatever. All those ones are what you will pay when you come to the point of finance. And I think the era of digitization should have made this easier. That if you do not pay, your record is not there. In those days, people were even lucky to beat the school system. You understand? Those who were forging, who were into forgery then. But now you have the computer system. I think it's more because you talk about you pay, you generate. But the problem we have now, listen to the problem we have is that we have so much commercialized education in Nigeria that we even have courses. You understand? Universities should not be offering. They'll be offering those courses just to make sure they get. At a point in my time, it became so problematic that we had to have two. I don't know whether to say two branches or two types of admission. The one they called the people who they believe we study during evening. You understand? And then who they now yes. Now you begin to see that all these are simply what I think the classroom became overpopulated. The learning facilities were actually being exhausted without replacement, and it's a problem. You understand? Before now, you ask yourself, all these schools we have today, look at their classroom capacity. The capacity of their classroom, you look at it cannot exceed anything more than 60-50. But today you have students, you understand, coming to their lecture hall, over 300 of them, coming to a place of maybe 60 hall, 60 capacity hall. You understand? And then when some of them will now hang with the window, some will be outside, some will sit down, some will sit on top of them, some will squat, some will even during further education at Oka, I learned under A3 until they were able to erect our faculty then, humanities. I studied under A3. I'm talking about 21st century, not even up to 10 years ago. So I think we have to be doing more. This is why you see to also maintain the school has become a problem. In most cases, government is not forthcoming in terms of subvention. Let's talk about that too. And the problem is that the school has no choice than to resort to what? Self-help to generate revenue internally. I will give an example. During the last administration, the Governor Ogezi Bazu said the Advanced Polytechnic should be a parastatal, an agency that generates funds. You understand? But when you look at the subvention, you begin to ask, what do they get? So the school will now, remember, apart from paying lecturers, maintaining facilities, the school also has other staff to pay. There are people who sweep. There are people who sweep. There are people who cut grasses. There are people who mow the lawn. There are people who even service the generator sets, equipment, and what have you. There are, in fact, so all these things are the problem.
So invariably, what you're saying is that the government has a very big role to play.
A very huge role to play.
Now, for the teachers on themselves, the lecturers or the management of the school to ask students to pay before any exam, that is because they may not have enough
money.
Yes, enough money from the government, from the subvention.
Yes, you see, there was a time, I'm not supposed to say it, but there was time in one institution, they ran out of the administrative place, they ran out of ink. Transport administration ran out of ink just to print papers. And you know where these exam papers are coming from. But I have to say this, you see, it is very, very important. It is very, very germane, because education is the basic thing we need to talk about in this country. So if the government can no longer provide for education, then it's a problem on its own. You understand? So I think we have to talk about increase in sectoral allocation to education.
All right, our wonderful listeners, we are going to go on a very short break. When we come back, this program will continue. Remember, we are looking at the recent happening in Umudike Federal University of Agriculture, Umudike in Abia State, that is Umuahia, Abia State. And then when we come back, we'll now talk about these gunshot patients who are not looked at, and nobody wants to look their side until they have gotten a police report. This we'll be looking at as soon as we come back. Just don't go away. Keep listening to your darling station 90.9 Living Radio FM.
Three-wing hall on fire. Three-wing hall on fire. Three-wing hall on fire. On fire.
Our great listeners, I'm glad you're still there. I'm glad you're there listening to your favorite program. And also those of you who are going to watch it in our YouTube, I'm sure you will enjoy every bit of this. Right now on this second segment, we are going to look at this issue of medical doctors and hospitals that will refuse to treat the patients with gunshot, and they refer them to any police station for police clearance, and stuff like that. And so many as a result, have died. And then the video clip we're going to play here will also tell you that it is illegal to stop treating a gunshot patient for any reason. But you have to start the treatment, after which you can report to the nearest police. It's failure to report to police while the treatment is going on that is illegal, not the treatment of this. And that is exactly what we are looking at. Comrade.
Yes,
I'm sure you're aware of this. You're aware of this.
Exactly.
All right.
I want to thank you. I want to commend you for initiating this program. I want to remember a neighbor of mine, the man I love so much. These are one of those I would say, if they were alive up to this moment, maybe things wouldn't be the way they are with me on a personal note. And that's Raphael Ungene. Yes, he died gunshot wound. My neighbor, he died. I'm sorry I'm saying this, but then it's personal for me. I think even though his case was not about police reports, but what I want to say is this: we don't do well in this particular aspect. How do we prioritize life? Someone was asking the other day, what is the value of life of a Nigerian? The Constitution chapter 4 is clear that there are fundamental, natural, And if you know the next word to natural, it is divine, inalienable. You understand? Rights Nigerians should enjoy. Even education we discussed is among those rights. Right to education, basic education up to JS3 should be free. That's what you call the universal basic education. Now, let me come back to what I was saying. You see, right to life should not be denied any citizen, no matter what, until a court has actually proven that this person actually committed the offense. Such offenses where there is capital punishment, which may not even be in the federal law, that will come to order. You see, in Nigeria, we have this practice, and it's against the Gunshot Act of 2017. Because I'm aware that there is a Gunshot Act of 2017 that was signed into law by former President Muhammadu Buhari, which says that any person with bullet wound or gunshot wound must first be accorded treatment, whether or not there is need for police report. But we have a system here where someone is bleeding profusely from stray bullets, probably from the same police themselves, or from armed robbers, or from kidnappers, or from any non-state actor group. Then you rush them to hospital. You are told I'm no longer talking about now police report. You are also told to pay emergency. You pay emergency, then you are also told to manufacture police reports or clearance to treat them. You understand? And then in the intervening period before you treat the person dies. So that it brings us back to the question: what is the value of life in Nigeria? So if we have a law we don't respect, then it is totally wrong and unacceptable on our part. We have a law that says any person must be treated. You understand? Even if they are criminals, unless the court had actually pronounced so, unless the person had been convicted. You understand? If it's a convicted criminal, okay, fine. But in this case now, you see someone hit by stray bullets or accidental descent, as they may call it, and the person is gasping, wanting treatment. The hospital is saying, get police reports, and life will be lost at the end of the day, and it does nobody any good. In many cases or many instances, it happened like that people died because of this. I call it negligence. Because if you know what it means, the human rights articles and conventions are worth more than any state law, any domestic law, because every state that must be a member of the United Nations must accept, must domesticate, must adopt them. And that's why Nigeria also has chapter 4 of its constitution, which talks about what human rights. So it's unfortunate that we have this system, and I thank you for bringing it up. So let's keep rolling.
Now, don't you think? I'm sure there is no medical doctor or hospital that wouldn't want to brief the staff, the nurses, the midwives, and even the junior doctors within them about this, just like you mentioned. But don't you think most of our doctors and nurses, most of them are not. They are not compassionate in nature. And then that is the sense of that negligence.
Yeah.
Because I've seen in so many hospitals here in Aba.
Yes.
They will ask you to go and get this report, even when the person is bleeding
profusely. You see, it is bad. You know why? I think the police should also have at least a health response team. You understand what I'm saying now? Because they themselves, they are also carrying out oppression to bring about order and enforce security here. So if they got hit by bullets, so who we treat them to is very, very important, because the problem we have is not just about treatment or about the police report itself. It's just that at the scene of that gunshot, when that person had been shot, there ought to be response. A medic, or let me say a paramedic, ought to be on hand to begin at least with first aid treatment, so that before the person is taken to the hospital, certain things would have been taken care of. You understand? But unfortunately, you don't even have this, and then the person goes to the hospital. Finally, the most important thing becomes manufacture the police report. And I don't know that this police report comes free of charge. I can't establish here whether it's free of charge or there is something attached to it. I don't know. I've never experienced that before, so I can't establish. But we know the system we have here. We know the system we operate here. So what I think is that there is need for states to domesticate this act. 2017 Act, and then the governors and the Houses of Assembly must make sure, you understand, that they work with Nigerian Medical Association, that's NMA. If someone fails to do this, to treat a patient or to treat someone struck by bullet, whether from the police or from the criminals or armed robbers or whatever, there should be a disciplinary consequence for that. Until we begin to take this thing seriously, we will continue to lose lives. You understand? In most cases, I know that they can actually punish errant members in their ranks. I'm talking about the health authorities. So why is it that we're not talking about this? Why is that not? Now in some states now we have conflicting practice. A state like I think Kano State, I think yes, Kano State, Kwara State, and some other states. I think Benue too. They have capital punishment for kidnappers. So if there is exchange of fire between the police and the kidnappers, and one of the kidnappers got shot, badly wounded, and you are going taken to the hospital, will they now be citing state law above the act of the National Assembly? You know what I'm saying? Now, then secondly, it should also be important to say this, and it's imperative to say that in most cases you don't even need to kill the criminal at the crime scene. You also need to use him as a lead to carry out investigation, to be able to track and trace their location, and even how they get funded, how they operate, and who is in charge, whether someone within, you understand, is mobilizing them.
Exactly. Anyway, about last time some Nigerians rose up to say, in fact, it was from the federal government that they know some of these criminals and so on, and then those who are sponsoring them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, during Buhari's administration, exactly, no person was mentioned. Anyway, that is by the way.
No, they don't mention them. You remember very well that there was just in the past, just about 2 weeks ago, they said a religious sect was funding. Yes, it's Islamic fundamentalism. Receives money, and now I think the Islamic Council of Nigeria said, okay, tell us the name, because if you say sect, we know people don't even associate sectarianism with Christianity. Sectarianism on them, then it is wrong too, contextually wrong. It's more associated. It's more of it's associated more with Islam. So the Islamic Council now ask a question and say, who are they? We are still waiting for the names to be named. We have not heard that. Just like you mentioned here, the EFCC is the UAE government, Emirati government, United Arab Emirates, the Emirati government said, we have intercepted persons who are in our country here wiring money into the accounts of terrorists. We've now given this person over to the Nigerian government. Nigerian government could not name them under Buhari, and the former Minister of Justice and Attorney General then said, Malami said, it is a sensitive thing. It is that there is, we kept hearing about national interest and what is not national interest.
All right, looking at it, before we cap it up for today, let us finally look at these our hospitals and outside these gunshot patients and so on. Have you gone closer to any hospital and see the level of reception, either from the nurses or even the doctors, as if they don't care that what we're talking about is life? Is it because they've seen so many corpses and they don't care again whether anyone dies?
I will give 2 instances. I will not mention the names of the hospitals involved because it's not in our manner to do that. Yes, it's against the ethics of this job. You see, there is one hospital here in this city that claims to be a missionary hospital, and I know there are funders giving money to the hospital I'm talking about now.
Yes.
A little child, I think that was 2017 or 2016. A little child fell down from one-story building where they were playing during playtime. The child fell down from that building, and that child was brought to this hospital. They couldn't treat the child. They wanted emergency money to be paid. I made trouble. You see, later, that child died. But we're talking about the missionary hospital. They say you are following Christ, the same Christ who went about healing the sick. He would either lay hands on them or even speak and command the disease to leave, to flee. That's by the way. Then another instance was this: a hospital. Someone was brought to the hospital. Now listen, someone was brought to this. My family member brought the pregnant wife to the hospital. The woman died trying to give birth, but the child also died. The hospital seized the corpse and said we must pay every dime. After after paying the dam, they now told us to pay a little for mortuary service. This is a personal thing, and my brother, my elder cousin, he should be hearing this. If he hears this, he should know I'm talking about the wife, the late wife. And it's unfortunate what happens in this country. And each time we are blaming government. This is not government. This is man saying humanity to man. Yes. You understand? People are desperate to get money, even at all costs, even if it means human life. You know what I'm saying now? So the federal government also initiates a policy that says confiscate corpses until owners of corpses pay or part with something. Someone has died and there are people are mourning. You are not talking about money. I will tell you this. In one of the hospitals again in Aba here, at a point an Hausa man died. So the Hausa community came and said, give us the corpse of our own. And the hospital said, no, you must pay us this amount. They said that amount is astronomical. We don't believe that. The hospital authority sees the dead body and said, go and come back. They left and they didn't come back. The hospital was now trying to reach them. They said, we can no longer do our duty by him. We can no longer, because it has exceeded a day or two. Okay, you understand? Culture. That's our culture. We don't bury you. You don't stay more than 2 days or so. So we can't come there. It became a problem. So I think we need to do more. We have to be human. Yeah. Because government has made the law. Government will enforce the law. You understand? But citizens must accept to work under the law to make the system efficient. If the government says the Gunshot Act of 2017 says anybody with bullet wound or no bullet wound should be accorded treatment, save life first, it means that doctors are bound by that law to save lives. You understand? What you're supposed to do is, when you are saving lives, you also involve police. And the police should also be made to be aware of this. In most cases, police will also want to even arrest some doctors for treating without involving them. You understand? I think we need more of education, more of awareness, conscientizing the police. They are doing a good job. I'm always proud of them. You understand? You cannot travel without seeing the police on the road. Even as much as we may have our issues with them, the issue of extortion, but you cannot make it a journey without seeing a policeman on the road and you feel safe. Yes. So I think they need education. They need to be trained. They need to be also shown more about human rights, and especially right to life, which is natural, which is divine, and which is godly.
All right. Thank you, comrade. And then before we go, it is important to know this. I don't know what your rule is on earth here, and I don't know what your New Year resolution is, but I think it is very important for us to note that life is not computed by its duration, but by its donation. It doesn't really matter how long you live on planet earth here, but what you're able to put down in the footprint of life as legacy matters so much. Yeah. So if you're in us, at least it is expected of you to be very humane. It is expected of you to show love. It's expected of you to even pet the patient and so on. But the truth about Nigerian people, wherever situation you find yourself, once you have one or two persons who want help from you, you become another god. That is too bad. That's exactly what comrade is saying. Comrade, before we go, let's have your final take in our discussions today.
Thank you. I'm going to be brief. Right to life and right to education are sacrosanct and must be protected by executive government that must execute it, and then by judiciary who must also interpret it, and then by Nigerians who must at all times, no matter what condition, accept those rights. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's the much we're going to take today. I thank you for being there today. Just keep watching and keep listening to Living Radio. Remember, in our YouTube, you're going to see even those the video clips we talked about, but that of Federal University of Agriculture, Modike, how the place was burnt. Remember, in this program, we've condemned in totality that aspect of violence or setting up a particular place on fire. You are not doing any good to yourself, and you are still going to pay for that. So it is wrong to have done that. You should have just walked around to show your grievances and so on. So it is wrong to take laws into your hand no matter what happens. And then that of the hospital, I'm sure some of our doctors who are listening to us have heard that. And also educate your member of staff. They should also know that. Admit persons first. Treat them better. At worst, if they can't pay, I've seen a hospital that held a woman back because she couldn't pay and became a cleaner.
Some are told to do menial jobs.
Menial jobs right there. But the most important thing is that you have saved that life. It is very, very important. Also, having said that, Comrade Nnamdi Lekwachi, thank you for being part of today's program.
It's always my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And this is your command, Orito Chinidum Adiele. Until we come your way again, keep enjoying yourself.
Say them deceive, oh, cause I know still not be me.